Hello, welcome to the Elementary Math Early Release Day Teacher PD for 5th grade. Here is the placemat that grounds all of the work we do here in CMS. It helps to make sure we are all aligned in core beliefs of the district's mission, vision, goals, and guardrails, and pillars of excellence. Our training today is aligned to the academic pillar of excellence. We hope you are gathered with your grade level PLC to view this video. Here are our session norms. Pause the video here to read the norms. My name is Susan Copeland, and I am one of the 6 elementary math curriculum instructional specialists within the Learning and Teaching Department here in CMS. Our learning outcomes today are to understand the story of Units 3 and 4, to explore tasks in the vertical progression of learning, to learn how to navigate the PLC unit deep dives, and to gain familiarity with the updated district provisioned resources. Throughout our time together today, you can expect to do some math and to navigate the IMCMS resources. Let's start off with some math. Take a moment to solve the 3 problems in your note catcher. As you work, consider how your students might approach these problems. Pause the video and try these 3 problems. When you finish, push play to continue. Let's think about the first 2 problems together. In problem 1, 2 pounds is being divided into 1/4 pound groups. We know the size of the group is 1/4, but we do not know the number of groups. So we can subtract out groups of 1/4 until we've used up the 2 pounds. Students can partition each pound into fourths to see how many. The first pound has 4 1/4, and the second pound has 4 1/4, making a total of 8. We can represent this with a division expression. We begin with a total, 2 pounds. We are repeatedly subtracting 1/4 pound to make each burger. So 2 divided by 1/4 gives us 8 burgers. We can use the relationship between multiplication and division here to solve. 8 servings of 1/4 pound is equal to 2 total pounds. 8 times 1/4 equals 2. In the second problem, the total being shared is 1/4 pound. So we begin with 1/4 pound. There are 2 people sharing the 1/4 pound. So this time we know the number of groups is 2, but not the size of the groups. If we partition the 1/4 into 2 equal shares, we can see the part that Diego and Claire would get. But how much is that? To know what fraction represents the pieces, we need to partition the whole into the same size pieces. Since the first fourth was partitioned into 2 equal parts, then all of the fourths in the whole need to be partitioned into 2 equal parts. Then we can see that the whole is partitioned into 8 equal parts, and Claire and Diego will each get 1/8. We started with a total of 1/4 pound of potato salad and divided it into 2 groups. So 1/4 divided by 2 is equal to 1/8 pound of potato salad. We can use the relationship between multiplication and division here too. 1/8 times 2 people is equal to 1/4. These questions are aligned to NC 5 and F7. Students are using area models to represent division of a whole number by a unit fraction and a unit fraction divided by a whole number. The first 2 problems are from Unit 3, Lesson 14, Activity 1. How does this work fit across grade levels? We can use the dependency chart in the 5th grade course guide to understand what this content builds on. The dependency chart connects to work with multiplying a whole number by a fraction in 4th grade Unit 3. This work is aligned to NC4 and F4. I would add that understanding of the 2 meanings of division explored in 3rd grade Unit 4 is also critical to the work of 5th grade fraction division. This aligns to NC30A2. This work builds 2 6th grade work of dividing a whole number by a non-unit fraction, as in this example. Notice that students are still using models here, so it is important that students work with models in 5th grade so that they're familiar with the area and length models as the work gets more complex in 6th grade. This work is aligned to standard NC6 NS1. What is the story of Unit 3? Section A focuses on fraction multiplication, finding a fraction of a fraction. Section B is focused on fraction division. Students are dividing a unit fraction by a whole number, thinking about that as partitioning a fraction, and they focus on dividing a whole number by a unit fraction, and this they relate to repeated subtraction of a fraction. In Section C, students do some problem solving with fractions using the operations from Sections A and B. Let's think about the third problem now. This problem also asks students to use an area model. Students will need to use their understanding from 4th grade that area equals length times width. In this problem, students are given the area and the length. So the equation 756 equals 27 times W can be recorded. So there's a rectangle that is 756 square centimeters in area with one dimension of 27 centimeters, and we need to find the width. We can begin by thinking about the largest number that we can easily multiply 27 by without going over 756. Many students start with 10, so let's do that. We can place a 10 on the width side and record the area of that part of the rectangle. We need to keep track of how much area has been included, so many students keep track on the side by starting with the area 756 and subtracting the first partial quotient 270, and the difference is 486. That means I could subtract another 270 since 486 is still more than 270. And then we subtract that 270 and we get 216. Note that as students become more fluent with the area model, they might start with 20 instead of 10 and 10 again. Now we cannot subtract another 10 rows because the number is less than 270. But what if we had half as many rows? Half of 200 is 100 and half of 70 is 35. So 5 times 27 would be 135. We can subtract 135 and now we just have 81 square centimeters left to complete the area of the rectangle. I know that 2 27s would be less than 60 because 30 and 30 is 60. So I'm going to guess 3. 3 times 20 is 60 and 3 times 7 is 21. 60 and 21 are 81. So 3 more rows is what I need. So I subtract the 81 and I have completed the area. To make the width, we need 10 rows, 10 rows, 5 rows, and 3 rows, or a total of 28 rows. So the missing side of the rectangle is 28 centimeters. I can record the missing factor, or 756, equals 27 times 28, or the division equation 756 divided by 27 equals 28. This question is aligned to NC 5 NBT 6. Students are dividing multi-digit whole numbers using rectangular arrays, area models, repeated subtraction, partial quotients, and/or the relationship between multiplication and division. This problem is from Unit 4, Lesson 10, Activity 2. So how does this work fit across grade levels? Again, we can use the dependency chart in the 5th grade course guide to understand what this content builds on. The work in 5th grade Unit 4 builds on 4th grade Unit 6, which is focused on multi-digit multiplication and division. Students used area models and arrays to divide up to 3 digits by a 1-digit number in 4th grade, and students multiplied up to 3 digits by a 1-digit number. This work aligns to NC 4 in BT 5 and NC 4 in BT 6. This work builds to 6th grade NC 6 in S2. In 6th grade, students build fluency with multi-digit division. In Unit 4, students multiply up to a 2-digit number and a 3-digit number. Students continue to use strategies from previous grades, but should also master the U.S. Standard Algorithm for multiplication in Section A. These lessons connect the algorithm to previous strategies. In Section B, students use repeated subtraction, arrays, and area models to divide up to 4-digit numbers by 2-digit numbers. Before you begin instruction for a new unit, we have created a PLC deep dive to guide you through unpacking each unit. There are several ways you can access these resources. Here is one way that will lead you to accessing the PLC deep dive. This video clip shows how you can access curriculum deep dives in Math Rocks. This example is for 4th grade, but if you click on 5th grade, you will access it the exact same way. Here is what we clicked on at a glance: Launchpad, Canvas, Math Rocks, 5th grade page, 5th grade curriculum supports. Scroll all the way down to Math. Math is at the bottom. And then when you click on a unit, and then you will see the video and a note catcher. In the event that you are not enrolled in Math Rocks already, you may also watch this screen recording on how to access the District Provision IM Math resources. Another way you can access the PLC Deep Dive is from Slide 2 in any curriculum guide. There is a link to the deep dive and the note catcher. Today's course is a brief introduction to Quarter 2 Units 3 and 4, but you will want to complete the unit deep dive to familiarize yourself with a unit about 2 weeks before each unit begins. Unit 3 begins October 21st, and the resources are already available in Math Rocks. So you might consider using tomorrow's teacher workday to complete the deep dive for Unit 3. Unit 4 begins on November 21st. The resources for Unit 4 will be available in Math Rocks on October 13th. November 4th is also a teacher workday, so that might be a great day to complete the deep dive for Unit 4. If you are interested in knowing the dates when any unit is available, you can access this document in Math Rocks on the home page above the grade level buttons. Here you can see again that Unit 4 will be released on October 13th, and items will be in Mastery Connect for Unit 4 by November 6th. As you complete the deep dive, you can access all important resources for each unit in the curriculum guide. Let's take a walk through the Unit 3 curriculum guide to highlight where you can access important information for Unit 3. Here are the sections that you will find in each curriculum guide. Let's look at standards first. You can see a full explanation of each standard by clicking on the yellow post-it note to see the North Carolina Unpacking document for each standard in the unit. The standards in the unit are on the next slides and look like this. While we're talking about standards, I want to mention that when you complete the deep dive for Unit 3, there is a new graphic organizer this year to help you with analyzing the standards of the unit. The next section is the assessment section. The unit assessment can be accessed here. Just click on the image of the assessment to the right. The reassessment is linked below the image of the unit assessment. Likewise, checkpoints can also be accessed by clicking on the image. In the next section, you will find planning notes, including a unit summary and section summaries, and a list of all centers in the unit. After that, there's a core lesson flow. After the summaries and the lesson flow, the individual lesson notes begin. This is where you access the links to the lesson, slides, a digital copy of the student workbook, cool downs, practice problems, and a practice problem answer key. You can also see standards, learning targets, lesson purpose, and materials to prep at a glance. If special notes are needed, you will find those located in materials to prep, and they will be highlighted. When a new section begins in the unit, there is a dark gray header bar. Before we move from lesson notes, notice at the end of the resources row, there is a note sharing the name of the practice problems as they have been entered into Mastery Connect as technology enhanced items. Just as a reminder, daily practice problems can be completed paper pencil in the workbook or digitally using technology enhanced items in Mastery Connect. You can access them the same way that you access unit assessments by syncing your tracker. Remember that sometimes the set of problems may live behind or within a standard on your tracker if they are a single standard set of problems. The small box above the standard indicates how many assessments created live within that standard. When you click the standard, you can see all of the assessments that live within the standard. The TEI items include a variety of question types. Here are some examples. For unfamiliar items, directions for how to answer the question are included in the problem. The final section of the curriculum guide is the small group section. This section highlights big ideas of the unit, key teaching points, and resources that can be used to re-engage students in the work of the unit as needed. You will also find resources to extend learning in the final column of these slides. For example, this big idea relates to the problem we solved earlier. Visual fraction models can be used to represent and solve division problems involving a unit fraction divided by a whole number. This provides us with an important teaching point that in order to identify the part of the whole for each piece, we need to divide the entire whole into fractional parts. Remember earlier when we shared between Diego and Claire, we could see the size of the parts, but we had to partition all of them to know the size of the piece. There are resources from DPI and centers to support the small group option and stretch resources for students who have already mastered this content. You might be wondering when to use these small group resources. Teachers should be pulling flexible small groups of students who still need clarity on specific skills and concepts or enhancing learning for students who are ready to apply what they've learned throughout the unit. You may use the resources in the small group section to re-engage students in the content of this unit during the daily 30 minutes designated for small groups, practice problems, and centers. You can also use these resources to re-engage students on the Putting It All Together days prior to the end of unit assessment. And of course, you can use these resources to re-engage students in the content on flex days, being intentional about the resources you use and the data you've collected to ensure student mastery of standards. Great sources of data are cooldowns, section checkpoints, practice problems, observation, and response data. As we wrap up, we have a few reminders. First, the MVPA 1 testing window is November 17th through the 25th. Here are the standards that will be assessed on MVPA 1 for 5th grade. Though there are recommended dates to administer the MVPA on our district pacing calendar, individual schools can decide when to administer the test within the window based on their school's testing calendar. Just as a reminder, weekly tidbits for 5th grade are provided to support with the story of the unit and just-in-time supports. Weekly tidbits are delivered directly to your email account from my teammate LaTonda Mitchell. If you have not been receiving the weekly tidbits, use the link on slide 2 of the curriculum guide to subscribe. One additional reminder, after administering the Universal Screener, there are 3 key ways to use iReady resources effectively. First, students can follow the platform, creating learning pathways outside the whole group core instructional time to reinforce their current performance levels. The district expectation is that every student completes and passes 45 minutes per week per content area. Second, teachers can assign lessons aligned to on-grade level standards currently being taught in the curriculum, also to be completed outside of whole group core time. Suggested times for completing activities outside of the whole group core instruction include morning work, differentiated core time, flex days, homework, or after-school programs. To wrap up this session, there are 2 forms for you to complete. One is for KVQs and one is for attendance. The link to the second form is included at the end of the first form. Access the first form using the QR code on the left or the bit.ly at the top. The bit.ly is also located in your note catcher. Be sure to submit the first form before beginning the second one. If you don't get the second form, then the bit.ly is also located on your note catcher. You will need the information on the screen, and it's also located in your note catcher, when you complete the second form. Thank you for attending this session. Please remember that you can email or attend the optional virtual office hours this afternoon if you have any questions. Thank you.